How we doing, everyone? Hope you're all well. Mr. Bold here, and I'm back today with a video I've been thinking about doing for a while now. I'm decided to take a look back at my 10 terrible albums in your collection video. This is a thread that went around the VC a couple of years ago. The idea for this video came from about 6 months ago. I did a video where I talked about my least favourite album from the big four of thrash metal and ranked them from worst to best. And discovered that whilst doing that video, I actually really liked Anthrax's Volume 8, The Threat Is Real, which is an album that I used to really dislike. So I thought, why not take a look back at the 10 terrible albums in my collection and see what I think about them now. So we're going to get into it after a quick sip of coffee, and we're going to find out if time has healed all wounds. So we're going to start off with some extreme metal from here in the UK. And here's Annihilator with their album Desideratum, which I probably mispronounced. So my initial dislike for this album was the fact that they started to incorporate some metalcore elements into this album. Now, when I'm listening to this band, or any band in fact, I don't want to hear any shitty metalcore. But I was a bit harsh on it, if I'm completely honest. It's only really the first couple of songs on this album that have got the metalcore in there. The rest of it is just standard Annihilator album, the mix of black metal, death metal and industrial. And I found out that, I was definitely a bit harsh on this one. It's really not that bad at all. Now I've gone back to it and listened to it again. Listened to it this week at work. I really quite enjoyed it. Like I say, the first two tracks, not really for me. But there's a lot of good stuff on this album. Idol, track 7 is really, really good. Rage and Red is another great tune. Just two of the guys in the band. Mick Kenny, who does all the instruments, an absolutely phenomenal musician. And I can't remember the name of the singer off the top of my head, but he does all the vocals and writes all the lyrics. So yeah, I've changed my mind on this one. Still not really keen on the metalcore elements in the first couple of songs, but on the whole, I found out that I was a bit harsh on this one first time round, and that's definitely gone up in my estimation. And knowing that craft, good album. Still do without the metalcore, but there we go. It is what it is. Up next, let's go over to the United States and back to 1990 and for some hard rock stroke glam metal and the album which features in the thumbnail of this video. And here's Poison's Flesh and Blood. Like I said, come out in 1990. So going back to this album, something is very much sticking out in my mind now, and that is if you remove the pointless instrumentals and the shitty power ballads, I actually really do quite enjoy this album. For me, Poison is one of those hair bands from back in the day that didn't do great ballads. For me, a band like Winger did ballads much, much better than Poison. And like I say, if you remove the ballads and the pointless instrumentals, it's actually quite good. Valley of Lost Souls, track 2. Is pretty decent tune. Flesh and Blood, Sacrifice, the title track, I really, really do enjoy it. Unskinny Bop's single. Bobby Doll's bass in the verses of that. The bounce in the bass just makes that song in the verses. It sounds fantastic. Come Hell or High Water is a great tune. Life Goes On, that ballad is not good. I could easily do without that. Ride the Wind, Open Side B, that's a good tune. Don't Give Up an Inch, I like that one as well. But Something to Believe In, just don't like that song at all. It's probably one of my least favourite Poison songs. But yeah, if you take out the ballads, take out the instrumentals and just leave the up-tempo rocking stuff, I enjoy it a lot more. So has my opinion changed on this one? Yeah, definitely. Like I say, take out the stuff I'm not so keen on, and the rest of it I actually really do quite enjoy. Not the best Poison album, has to be said, but Poison's Flesh and Blood from 1990. Remove the cack, keep the good, and it's all good. Up next is an album that I really was not looking forward to listening to at all. Here's Bon Jovi and These Days from 1995. This is definitely their descent into bored housewife rock. So listen to this again this week, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. Don't get me wrong, this is still not going to be anywhere near the quality of the likes of New Jersey or Slippery When Wet. But I discovered when listening to this album, when I went back to it this week, I enjoyed it much more than I did the first time around. The first track, Hey God, is definitely the best though still, and I was of that opinion at the time. First round I was like, Hey God, the title tracks, that's the only ones that I really liked, but I've definitely changed my opinion. Hey God though, The opening track is excellent. I really enjoy that one. Something for the Pain track 2. That was a single. I really like that as well. And you've got other stuff on this. Like the title track these days is really good. Lie to Me is a decent ballad. Although when you get to about the halfway point of the album, I start to remember why I didn't like this album so much, because we start to get towards a lot of ballads which just don't interest me at all. And the second half of the album as well, there's very little variation in the pace of the songs. Everything pretty much sounds the same. And there's one song towards the end. I can't read the titles because the writing's so small, but I remember when I was listening to it, one of the songs towards the end, the vocal patterns in the verses and even the lyric writings very much reminded me of Prince's Sign of the Times. So I don't know if John and the guys have been listening to that before they made this record, but it sounds very, very similar. Last track, Bitter Wine, that's actually pretty good. But there's a lot of stuff between the halfway point and sort of the 3/4 way point through this album that still just does not interest me at all. So has my opinion changed on Bon Jovi's these days? Yeah, I enjoy it more than I did when I made the original video, but there's still definite room for improvement, and the lack of variation in the speed on the songs definitely makes this one still drag, but I definitely like it more than I did. Pleasantly surprised by that, but still won't be sort of leaping to the top of any kind of Bon Jovi album ranking in any stretch of the imagination. Let's come back over here to the UK now for some more extreme metal. And here's Carcass and Reek of Putrefaction, their debut album from 1988. So in the original video, I was of the opinion of it's kind of all just blasting away as fast as possible. Really deep guttural vocals, just playing as heavy as possible. And the song's not really having any hooks or anything that's kind of leaps out, sticks out in your memory. So I've listened back to it this week, and has my opinion changed on this album? Not in the slightest. Carcass for me is a band that went on to do much better things, and I still just really do not like this album. For me, playing really heavy, playing really fast does not make a great album. Your songs have got to have hooks, they've got to be catchy, and this album just doesn't have them at all. I mean, Genital Grinder, the first track on side A, I do quite like that one. Maggot Colony as well, I do quite like, but the rest of it, it's just a load of mess, a load of noise. Whoever mixed this did a terrible job, because you can't really sort of pick apart anything. Everything is just a blur and a mess. And their debut album from 1988, Carcass's Reek of Putrefaction, for me, is easily the worst thing they ever did. These guys went on to do much better things as far as I'm concerned. The follow-up to this, Symphony of Sickness, is so much better. The difference is night and day. But Reek of Putrefaction from Carcass for me is an album that hardly ever gets spun, and it never will, because I just don't think it's very good at all. Let's go for some thrash now. Over to 1992. Here's Exodus, Force of Habit. Now, I have listened to this recently because I did my When Bands Change in the 90s series, and I talked about this album then. My opinion the first time around of this was first track I really like, and the rest of it I don't really care for it at all. So going back to it, what I think about it now, it's slightly better than I remember it being when I did the original video. There's a few songs in this that I do enjoy actually. Thorn on My Side, like I say, the first track, I've always liked that one. The title track, Force of Habit, is quite good. Fuel for the Fire I actually quite like. One Foot in the Grave, that's a good tune. Good Day to Die I like. There's a cover on here of Elvis Costello's Pump It Up, which is completely pointless because the original's much better. Having said, even though I'm saying that I like quite a few of the tunes on this album now, I do, but they're just okay. There's nothing outstanding here that makes you think, oh yeah, that is an absolutely outstanding song. The songs I like, they're just good, and that's about as complimentary as I can be about them. So has my opinion changed on this one? Not really. It's a bit better than I remember it being. But again, Exodus, like Carcass, are a band that have got much, much better stuff in their discographies. The killer guitar tone is still here, and I like Zetro's vocals. But for the most part, the songs are quite forgettable in places. Again, this suffers with the case of a lot of the songs are of the same pace. There's very lack of variation of the speed of the songs, which is a problem, which makes the album drag. And it's easily the worst thing they've done. Still not really much of a fan of that at all. Although it's better than I remembered it being slightly. Let's stay in the States now and go for something that's a little bit more up to date. Here's Municipal Waste. Slime and Punishment, which came out in 2017. Crossover, thrash, punk from these guys, whose discography is really, really strong apart from this album. Now, to be fair, maybe this shouldn't be in this list, because when I listen to this album, I can't honestly say it's terrible, but just nothing sticks out in the memory, really, or very little. The riffs are all there, the excellent drums from Dave Witt are there. I love Tony Forester's vocals, but the songs are lacking hooks. Breathe Grease, first track on side A, I do really like. And then the first track on side B, the title track, Slime and Punishment, that's got a really nice hooky chorus. But the rest of it, the songs simply start, they finish, and there's no hooks, nothing sticks out in the memory. So yeah, it's just quite forgettable, and which is quite a shame, because the rest of their stuff is really, really strong. I really, really love this band. They've got some excellent albums in their discography, like Hazardous Mutation and The Art of Partying. The last one, The Electrified Brain, I think it was called. That's really good as well. But Slime and Punishment is just bang average, pretty much the whole way across it. Lacking in hooks, lacking in catchy songs, and it's just a bit forgettable. It starts, it finishes, and not much sticks out in the memory. So has my opinion changed on this? Not at all. Exactly what I thought about it originally. Very, very average. Only a couple of decent tunes. And the rest of it just kind of passes you by and it doesn't really stick in the memory. Up next, a legend that I hate to talk shit about, but this is not a good album. It's Dee Snider with... bloody hell, what's the writing on that? So... We Are the Ones. Christ, that writing's absolutely tiny. Couldn't read that at all. Hate to rubbish D because he's a legend. He, of course, kicked the ass of the PMRC back in 1985. And his first solo album is really, really good. But this one, not so good at all. My opinion originally was a few decent tracks, but the rest of it doesn't stick out in my memory at all. And to be honest, once I've been back to it, I pretty much think exactly the same. I mean, there's a couple of tracks that are decent. We Are the Ones, the title track, is actually pretty good. Over Again, track 2 is decent. Track 5, we've got a piano and vocals only version of Twisted Sisters, We're Not Gonna Take It. And whereas it's not terrible in the slightest, it's completely unnecessary because the original is just so much better. But Dee's voice sounds amazing on it, as per usual. There's also another song here, a cover of 9 Inch Nails' Head Like a Hole, which again is not terrible, but why would you want to listen to that when you can listen to the original, which is far superior? And you've got another couple of songs on here like Superhero and So What. Not good songs, not memorable at all. So has my opinion on Dee Snider's We Are the Ones changed? No, pretty much exactly the same as where I was at a couple of years ago. A couple of decent tunes, a lot of forgettable stuff, and a couple of covers which are completely pointless and which suggest to me that they're running out of ideas for this album. The album before this, far, far better. If you're looking to check out a Dee Snider album, I'd check out the one that come before this. Don't bother with this one because it's really not that great. Speaking of Dee Snider, is Twisted Sister and Come Out and Play from 1985. So with this album, once again, a case of there's some stuff in this that I liked, but a lot of forgetful stuff as well. I actually like it a bit more than when I made the original 10 Terrible Albums video, I have to say. The title track, Come Out and Play, is actually quite good. I like that one. I Believe in Rock and Roll is a pretty good tune. I've always liked Be Cruel to Your School, even though it's dumb, cliched 80s metal. Out on the Streets is okay as well. The Fire Still Burns is actually very, very good. However, their cover version of The Leader of the Pack is, and always will be, a seriously bad misstep. It's absolutely horrendous. Cover versions, metal bands doing covers back in the 80s was a very sort of popular thing, and sometimes they worked, and a lot of times they didn't, and it definitely didn't work in this case, and that cover version is absolutely terrible. Whosever idea that was at the record company, the band should have insisted, no, it's not happening. So has my opinion changed on Twisted Sisters Come Out and Play? Yeah, I have to say, this is definitely better than I remembered it being. I really wasn't much of a fan of it when I first heard it, but I enjoy it a lot more now. And if I was going to make another video about 10 terrible albums, I certainly wouldn't include this. Don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near as good as something like Oh, second album called, bloody hell, I can't remember now. You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. I said that's a fantastic album. The debut Under the Blade is really good as well. This is a hit and miss affair. But yeah, some good stuff on it, but still some absolute shit on it. Twisted Sisters come out and play. My opinion has changed. Definitely enjoying that one more now. Let's go over to Canada for some thrash. And here's Annihilator and Remains from 1997. So my opinion on the original video was it's got a couple of decent tunes, but the rest of it's forgettable. I listened back to it this week, and has to be said, this is even worse from when I did the original video. This is an absolutely terrible album, and I hate to say anything negative about Jeff Wars, because I think he's great. Amazing guitar player, great leads, great riffage, but this album just doesn't have anything of much quality whatsoever. I think I read a while back that Jeff was going through a bad time personally at the time, and I think this album was put out really to fulfill contractual obligations. So he can, I mean, to be honest, it sounds like it's been phoned in. There's no proper drum here. It's a drum machine. I think Jeff plays all the instruments, does the vocals, but the songs are just not memorable at all. There's one song on this that I really like, Tricks and Traps. That's actually really good. But there's so much generic stuff on here, which it sounds like he hasn't really tried very hard. It is an absolutely awful album, and it's easily the worst thing that Jeff ever put out. I mean, stuff on this like Murder, Sexecution, Human Remains, Dead Wrong. They're just terrible, terrible, terrible songs. Such a bad album, and I can't believe I actually dislike this more now than when I did the original 10 Terrible Albums video. If you've not heard this and you're into an Annihilator, I cannot stress enough, do not listen to it, because it's absolutely woeful. Terrible, terrible stuff from Annihilator. Remains from 1997. Is not a good album, and I think it's even worse now than I thought it was a couple of years ago. Two more to talk about. And here's Judas Priest's Ram It Down from 1988. So when I made the original video, my opinion was I liked the title track, and bizarrely, I like the cover of Johnny Be Good, which most people hate. So I did listen to this probably about a year ago because I was doing a Judas Priest album ranking. I listened to it again this week. So has my opinion changed on this? Yes, definitely. Enjoying it a lot more than I did before. The title track is still fantastic. Rob Halford's vocals are now absolutely phenomenal. Track 2 is a song called Heavy Metal, which I used to absolutely hate. And even though it's dripping in 80s metal cliches, has got really, really bad lyrics, and the production on it's horrible. The drums are not good. I mean, they're all a drum machine because the drummer at the time had an injury. But even the bass has got some horrible electronic sound on it, which is not a good move. But do I enjoy listening to the song? Yeah, it might be dumb, cliched 80s metal fun, but it's a song that I can now really sort of, when I listen to it, sing along to it. I really have changed my tune on that one quite a lot. Love Zone, track 3 is another really good one. I used to dislike that one massively as well, but I don't anymore. Come and Get It's okay, but Hard as Iron, last track on side A, is superb. However, when we get to side B, things do start to go downhill again. Blood Red Sky is the first track on side B. That's a fan favourite, but not for me. Again, Rob's vocals sound fantastic in it, but the synthesizers in it really date it. I mean, the production on this album dates it horribly anyway, because the production is not great. Not really a big fan of Blood Red Skies. I'm a Rocker, that's actually pretty good. I don't mind that one. Like I say, Johnny Be Good, the cover, I enjoy that. But the last two songs, Love You to Death and Monsters of Rock, are still fucking terrible now, especially Monsters of Rock. A terrible way to end this album. It's like they wrote about 7 decent songs, and then for the last 2 decided it can't be arsed and chuck a covering in on there as well. But I have got a lot more time for this album than I had at the original, when I made the original video. Yeah, I really liked 2 songs first time round, and that was it. But now I like probably about just over half of it, but some of it is still really bad in places. The production's horrible. But Ram It Down from Judas Priest is definitely an album that I enjoyed more than I did a couple of years ago. Yeah, not bad, but not even close to being their best. So one more album to talk about. And I'm going to do quite a U-turn on this album. Not as much a U-turn as I did on Anthrax's Volume 8, The Threat Is Real. But if you told me 6 months ago I was going to talk about this album and praise it as much as I'm about to, I wouldn't have believed you. So here we go. Sepultura's Roots from 1996. Absolutely hated this for years. I listened to this again not too long ago when I did my When Bands Change in the 90s series. And I remember thinking it was better then, and I've been listening to it again this week. And I have to say, my opinion on this has really changed. Don't get me wrong, this is never ever going to be anything like Arise, Beneath the Remains or KSAD, but I've got a lot more time for Roots than I once had. One of the first things people will bitch about when I talk about this album is it's got new metal in it. I mean, for me, one, there's barely any new metal in it, and two, why does that matter anyway? I mean, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, new metal was absolutely everywhere and huge. And I listened to quite a bit of it and really enjoyed it. I mean, these days, do I still listen to it? Not very often. And I did get rid of a lot of the albums, but I've still got some new metal in my collection. But I don't think this is a bad album, just because it's got a bit of new metal in it at all. I really like quite a few of the songs now. I mean, I've always loved Roots Bloody Roots. First track is absolutely fantastic. Attitude, track 2 is good as well. Cutthroat, track 3 I really like. Straight Hate's another good tune. Look Away I really like. Spit is another great song. And the last two as well, Endangered Species and I can't read the bloody title of the last one. The writing's too small. I really, really enjoyed, and I'm absolutely amazed myself. I'm enjoying it as much as I am. There's a lot of the traditional Brazilian instruments in this again. They were definitely changing things up. Max's vocals sound really good. The riffs are much more simplistic to what came before, of course. But yeah, I really like it now, and I can't believe I'm saying it myself. But Sepultura's Roots is now that I've all of a sudden got a lot more time for. Like I say, it's never going to be anything anywhere near the quality of Beneath the Remains or Arise for me. But Roots is an album that has very much gone up in my estimation. Have I changed my opinion? Absolutely I have. Really do quite like this one now. Like I say, not fussed that there's a little bit of new metal in there, and it really is a little bit as far as I'm concerned. Good album. I'm amazed I'm saying it myself. But there we go. Sepultura's Roots from 1996. Have I changed my opinion on that one? Absolutely. I really, really do quite like it now, and I can't believe I'm saying it. Right, guys, that's it for this week's video. Thank you for watching, as always. Drop in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I should be back with you next week, as per usual. So until next time, as always, cheers, take care, and I'll see you later.